Greetings, everyone. Gary here. We are going today to talk about something that has manky stockings, giant insects, and a horrible, horrible fungal infection. And, we're not talking about my nan's house. Sorry, Nan. We are, in fact, going to talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics, The House on the Island. So, Dungeon Crawl Classics, The House on the Island, is a really interesting module for a number of reasons. It is, I'll just give you the basic stuff. So, it's by Errol Otis, which is of some interest, and we'll come back to in a moment. And it's 16 pages, so it's really, really, really short. Now, it is for their kind of like subsystem for Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is the Dying Earth role playing game. And the Dying Earth role-playing game, obviously, is based on the works of Jack Vance. If you know me, I think that Jack Vance is one of those fantasy authors that you just absolutely have to have read. I mentioned it here in my video where I talk about DM required reading. Now, it is written by Errol Otis, and Errol Otis is quite interesting as an individual. Anyway, he's one of the oldest D&D artists for AD&D and for just early kind of like role playing in general. And he has a particular art style that is really psychedelic and kind of really strange, and actually fits really well with Jack Vance's post-historic, slightly punk, weird future of the Dying Earth. A couple of things that Errol Otis has done over the years that you're probably going to be interested in. So this is some of his work. The early work is for Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I'll probably do a video on this at some point. It's really, really cool. So you can see kind of cartoony, kind of strange. This is his earlier stuff. And then he also did, I think this is brilliant. This is the inside cover of Goodman Games' remake of Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I said this about a piece of artwork recently. I can't remember what it was, but that was it. It was the inside of the Mordheim cover. But I mean, if you were gonna roller over the Sistine Chapel and Michelangelo and replace it with anything, I mean, look at this, right? This is exactly what I want from role playing. Look how terrified this guy looks. This is why I use Froghemoths. This reason exactly every single time. And then some of his other stuff, he's illustrated quite a few things for the Dying Earth. So this is one of the core rule books for the Dying Earth kind of subsystem, which he's done. And you can see again that kind of like weird psychedelic art style. And then obviously he illustrated the front of this module, which he has also written. So, I was had a bit of trepidation going into this one because I was like, oh, this is a guy who he has done a bit of game design before. He's done quite a bit of game design, but he hasn't, he's not, primarily a game designer. He is, in fact, an artist. So how is this going to work out? This is brilliant. It's a really good fun evening. So let's talk about some bona fides before I get going. So I've only run this once. I have not run it for Journeyman. I've not run it for DCC. I've run it for my system, Journeyman Expert Master, and it worked really well. I ran it for 6 PCs. Most of them were 4th level, and a pair of them, 4 of them were for 4th level, and two of them were 1st level, and they made it to kind of like 2nd or 3rd level by the end of the module. And it's really, really interesting. Now, the through line is this for the module. There is effectively an island on a lake that has the leftover remnants of a kind of wizard's home. And what's particularly interesting is that the remnant itself is the home. The home is a sentient house that wanders the island. And it's basically been noticed that it is going into the sea every single day to clean itself, and then it goes back. And there's effectively this kind of like strange hole in the ground, like a charging port that it sits on each night. It sounds weird not saying it out loud, but it sits on each night to kind of recharge itself. And what has happened, the way the players become involved in this is the house has started to gather up a kind of semi-sentient sea foam, and it's stuffing it in itself and into this kind of like weird charging port, because it's offering some kind of relief. Because what's actually happened is in this kind of charging port, a sentient kind of like living, always alive, but a living fungus, a kind of weird polyp, a kind of aggressive self-aware yeast infection is growing in this charging port, and it's infecting the base of the house every time the house has to come to recharge itself. And what the house is doing is it wanders into the sea to try and clean itself, and it's gathered up this sea foam and it's stuffing in itself because it's like, oh, that's a bit of relief there. Like, it's like eczema cream, right? So it's really gonzo and kind of like really bodily and disgusting, and like exactly the kind of thing that I want. And the mother, a kind of naiad, a sea goddess, a kind of river spirit of that is the mother of this sea foam, basically drags the PCs to the island and says, can you please just like deal with this, because this house has stolen my child, has stuffed it into its charging port to deal with its yeast infection. It's like, oh, this is properly grisly, but I think it perfectly works, especially in a Jack Vance's Dying Earth setting. So what basically happens is they get to the island. That's a picture of the house. Look at that, right? Just great, like just groaning. They know that the house has these weird stockings on. I think this is kind of, now it's Errol Otis is out, but it kind of reminds me of Dr. Seuss in a way that's really satisfying. And on the island, you get this map. They appear on this beach, and basically they make their way along the island, along this trail, to the house where the house sits there. On there, they meet a series of kind of like slightly strange, prismatic kind of encounters, and they also like things like slurms and emerald bees. They come across a really strange creature that kind of like is like a disembodied face that kind of like crawls kind of strange monstrously, this like hunting monster that they have to deal with or avoid. It's really, really, really engaging. All of the artwork in this, which obviously is all done by Errol Otis, like this here, I think this is of the slurm, this weird like millipede thing. I mean, that's just great. It's like this kind of like legged tadpole that crawls along the floor. And also, as with all DCC modules, there is a series of box texts. It's not actually box, not literally box. It's italicized text, which game masters can read out when you come to each location. That is really good. And that's where I would have had the most trepidation as going into this, as it being primarily an artist writing this. But I am willing to say that I got this totally wrong. Errol Otis is really experienced. He's brilliant. He's better than I'll ever be at any of this sort of stuff. And I was like hugely impressed. And as with many DCC modules, what the box text, when it's well written, allows you to do is it's not like an OSE module, something like Winter's Daughter. Check my review for that here. Where you just get kind of like a kind of few atmospheric kind of descriptive words, maybe. It does tell you exactly what's going on, but also if there is something that's either cheesy, corny, or a little bit even kind of this one, a little bit kind of like gristly and disgusting and bodily and like fluidy, it gives you the confidence as the game master. Just well, I'm reading this out, it's in the text, so you. Sorry, guys, just got to talk about the polyp a bit more. Got to talk about the fungus a bit more. It's there. And I thought my players absolutely loved this adventure. They camped out halfway along, and they carefully negotiated that strange hunting horror. I forget the name of the monster that is creeping along. Oh, look at this. This is a double page. Now, this is a piece of Doug Kovac's art in the book, but this is that strange kind of like monstrous creature that's creeping along, and I just think it's absolutely great. Something that you get in DCC modules all the time are these kind of like set piece descriptions of kind of like an action scene that's going to happen. There's a really good one in The King of Elfland's Daughter where you see this kind of like unseelie unicorn and players desperately fighting against it. Then you get a map of the house. Now, the house itself is interesting. It's willing to engage the player characters in conversation, which is really, really, really good. And I'm going to read you the role play the house box. It's just a short little bit. The house will happily engage in conversation. It has not had meaningful discourse with anyone in quite a long time, and is quite open about kidnapping algae. That's the name of the kind of like seafoam thing. And the reason for it, i.e. the itchy mildew it suffered from the recent musty mist flow, and how algae's fresh emanations provided blessed relief. But it does not appear to understand how this might cause distress to another being, the water woman. If the party is cordial, it will invite them inside to view algae in the aquarium and to look around. And if they are particularly well behaved, it will even invite them to stay the night. I mean, that's just great. All of my players just love talking to the house. And I think that I just think that this is something you've got to go all in on. I think that's one of the most important things as a game master is that you've got to be the biggest confidence, kind of like the person who is most confident to look ridiculous at the table. Because in doing that, you give license to everyone else to do that. And it's like, yes, I'm playing this house. You've kind of got to enter it in this sort of region of the house. And it's kind of quite friendly, but it's sat on an itchy charging port, right? All of it sounds absurd, but it was really good fun. And then you also get, I mean, this is the best name of a dungeon ever. So as they pass through kind of like into the beneath the house to get rid of this fungus, this is the name, right? The Fungal Fissure. I mean, like disgustingly wet and alliterative. And they pass through a series of chambers. They eventually have to climb down a strange kind of fungal like growth. And then they get to this huge chamber with this pulsing kind of like bubonic kind of like polyp at the bottom. I mean, it is brilliant. So the thing is there's the DCC modules. I just think Dungeon Crawl Classics do a really good job generally. Goodman Games do a really good job generally with Dungeon Crawl Classics, but I think that something when they do their licensed games, like they did one for Lankmar, for Fritz Leiber's works, they've done one for Jack Vance's works now with The Dying Earth. I think it's just worth saying that the quality does not suffer in terms of the adventure writing. Now, I'm going to be honest, I haven't run the main game, so I don't want to speak for that, but the adventures haven't suffered at all. It's not like they are trying to square peg a DCC adventure style into the round hole of Jack Vance's prose. But it works really, really well. Just gonna give you the description for the Polyp Vault as just a like small vignette of interest. The pulsing pillars of yellow strands stretch down to the floor of the chamber below, spreading out and merging in a disturbing tangle of yellow and grey, with a massive 8-foot-high globule of greyish-black slime in the centre of the vault. This gargantuan polyp vibrates with a powerful thrum, appearing slightly blurred due to the motion, and across its surface small motes of coruscation twinkle and swirl. I mean, they have to fight a bubo, right? They're fighting a giant spot. It's just like hilarious and brilliant. And that's all there is to it. There is a section on concluding the adventure and the kind of treasure that you can get from the Waterwoman. I dropped this into my own personal setting. I didn't make it at sea. I actually had it on a lake. And like a mountain lake, and I got them to be taken there. That's exactly how I did Winter's Daughter as well, an OSE adventure. But that is the house on the island. It is brilliant. You should pick it up if you can, because it's just absolutely wonderful, just for the artwork and nothing else. But as ever, like and subscribe, do all that cool stuff. I appreciate that. But I also mainly just appreciate you stopping and listening to my kind of slightly, kind of like incoherent ramblings about what I love, which is good adventures. I'll speak with you again soon. Thank you.